Hello everyone, welcome back to Taiwan Tech Dispatch. I'm your host, White Shu. Today, I'd like to tell you a story. Not about semiconductors, not about artificial intelligence, and not even about earthquakes. Instead, this is a story about culture. A culture that quietly supports one of the world's most important technology ecosystems. If you've ever wondered why global technology companies trust Taiwan so deeply, part of the answer may have appeared on Google Maps. Late one Saturday night. Let's begin. Chapter 1. The night the roads turned red. Shortly after 11 p.m. on a Saturday night, an earthquake struck northeastern Taiwan. Fortunately, there was no major damage. Buildings remained intact. Power stayed on. Life seemed to return to normal almost immediately. But then, something unusual happened. People across Taiwan began noticing something strange on Google Maps. Around Hsinchu Science Park, roads that were normally quiet at this hour suddenly turned orange and red. At first glance, it looked like a traffic jam, but this wasn't people going home. It wasn't nightlife, and it certainly wasn't a holiday event. According to local media reports, much of this traffic consisted of engineers returning to work late at night on a weekend, right after an earthquake. For many people outside Taiwan, that sounds surprising. For many engineers in Hsinchu, it feels almost routine. Chapter 2. This is bigger than the semiconductor industry. When people hear this story, the first explanation is usually simple. Well, Taiwan has TSMC. That explanation isn't wrong, but it doesn't tell the whole story. Hsinchu Science Park is far more than a semiconductor manufacturing hub. It is home to IC design companies, electronic component manufacturers, precision equipment suppliers, optical technology companies, automation specialists, materials suppliers, networking and communications firms, and countless other advanced technology businesses, different industries, different products, different customers. Yet after the earthquake, many of them reacted in remarkably similar ways. That tells us something important. This isn't simply the culture of one company or even one industry. It is the culture of an entire technology ecosystem. Chapter 3. Nobody needed to be told. One of the most fascinating parts of this story is that many engineers didn't wait for instructions. There wasn't necessarily an emergency phone call. There wasn't always a manager asking people to come back. Instead, Many people simply ask themselves one question: do I need to check the system? In highly engineered manufacturing environments, earthquakes don't always cause visible damage. Sometimes nothing appears broken at all, but tiny shifts can happen. Equipment alignment, calibration, production parameters, mechanical positioning. Most of these issues are invisible to the naked eye, yet, if left unchecked, a very small deviation today could become a much larger production problem tomorrow. From that perspective, returning to the factory isn't about working overtime for the sake of overtime. It's about reducing uncertainty before uncertainty becomes expensive. This is responsibility that has been deeply internalized, not because someone demanded it, but because people understand how the entire system works. Chapter 4: Hsinchu operates like one giant machine. Perhaps the biggest misunderstanding outsiders have is thinking that Hsinchu is simply a collection of technology companies located near one another. In reality, it behaves much more like one interconnected system. Every company depends on another. Suppliers depend on manufacturers. Manufacturers depend on equipment vendors. Equipment vendors depend on material suppliers. Product schedules are synchronized. Customer deliveries are tightly planned. A small delay in one place can ripple across many others. In systems engineering, we often talk about tightly coupled systems. These are systems where events spread quickly because everything is interconnected. Hsinchu is one of those systems. When uncertainty appears, waiting until Monday morning isn't always the safest option. Sometimes, the fastest way to restore stability is simply to verify that everything is still functioning exactly as expected. That's why so many people quietly got back into their cars that night. Chapter 5: The Human Side of Reliability. Around the world, Taiwan has earned a reputation for reliability. Customers know production will continue. Factories maintain extremely high uptime. Supply chains recover quickly. Execution is disciplined. These strengths are often explained through technology, advanced manufacturing, automation, precision engineering. But stories like this remind us that another layer exists beneath all of those technologies: human responsiveness. When uncertainty appears, engineers become the first line of defense. They return, they inspect, they verify, they make sure tomorrow's production can begin exactly as planned. In many ways, Taiwan's manufacturing excellence is supported not only by advanced machines, but also by people who have developed an extraordinary sense of responsibility toward the systems they operate. Chapter 6: A Question for the Future. Personally, I think this story deserves both admiration and reflection. On one hand, it's easy to understand why global companies trust Taiwan. This level of commitment is extraordinary. It demonstrates professionalism, discipline, and ownership. But at the same time, it raises an important question. As technology becomes increasingly complex, can resilience continue to depend on people rushing back to work in the middle of the night? Or should future factories become intelligent enough to detect, diagnose, and recover from these situations with much less human intervention? Perhaps the next generation of smart manufacturing won't simply be about producing more chips. It will also be about protecting the people who keep those factories running. Because true resilience shouldn't only mean that systems survive uncertainty. It should also mean that the humans supporting those systems can sustain their lives, their health, and their families over the long term. Maybe that's the next challenge Taiwan's technology ecosystem will eventually need to solve. Thank you so much for listening to Taiwan Tech Dispatch. If you enjoyed today's episode, please consider following the podcast and sharing it with someone who's interested in Taiwan, technology, or the hidden stories behind the global semiconductor industry. You can also find my in-depth articles on my blog and my LinkedIn newsletter, where I explore Taiwan's technology ecosystem from both engineering and business perspectives. Until next time, I'm White Shoe. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you in the next episode.